What if one day you saw a UFO hovering right above the sky with your own eyes? What would happen next? Maybe your story would go viral. The media would swarm around you, conducting interviews and treating you like a key eyewitness to a supernatural event. But just a few days later, before the spotlight even fades, a group of mysterious individuals dressed in black shows up at your doorstep. They don't say much. One of them hands you a cold warning: stay silent. What you saw never happened. These are the men in black, the enigmatic figures in dark suits who have long disturbed the world with their eerie appearances following UFO sightings. But who are they? Why do they always target witnesses with threats? Who do they really work for? And what is their true purpose? The journey to uncover the truth behind the men in black begins with one of the earliest and most frightening UFO encounters in history, the Maury Island incident of 1947. The main witness was a man named Carl Donovan, a boat captain operating in the Puget Sound area of Washington state. On June 21st of that year, Carl, his son, and their loyal dog set out on a routine patrol along the coast of Maury Island. The sky was clear with nothing to suggest the extraordinary phenomenon about to unfold. Suddenly they spotted 6 circular flying objects hovering in the air like giant metallic donuts, each with a hole in the center and radiating a strange glow. Without warning, one of the objects began to shake violently before spewing thousands of metal fragments down toward Carl's boat like a rainstorm. A sharp shrieking noise echoed as the debris slammed into the deck. The vessel was heavily damaged, Carl's son was injured, and tragically, the dog didn't survive. When authorities arrived, they quickly gathered the debris for analysis. Later, scientists declared that the metal fragments were not of earthly origin. That raised a chilling question. Could what Carl witnessed have been an alien spacecraft? There was a witness, a victim, and physical evidence. And yet, why did this case quietly vanish from public attention? The following morning, a stranger appeared at Carl's door. He was dressed immaculately, wore a hat and dark sunglasses, and drove a sleek black car. Without identifying himself, the man invited Carl to breakfast to discuss what happened. What stunned Carl was that this man seemed to know everything. The shape of the objects, the exact point of impact, even Carl's reactions afterward. Carl began to wonder, was this an FBI agent? But the conversation quickly took a sinister turn. The man issued a firm warning: Carl must never speak further about the incident. He stressed that if Carl continued to reveal the truth, the consequences would be severe, not only for him, but for his entire family. His voice was calm but loaded with psychological pressure. Carl felt genuine fear. After that breakfast, Carl fell into a deep state of paranoia. He believed he was being watched. Everywhere he went, he sensed someone lurking nearby. Eventually overwhelmed by fear, Carl withdrew from all public interviews and declared that his story had been fabricated. And just like that, one of the few UFO encounters with tangible evidence was buried, its truth smothered by a powerful shadow. But Carl Donovan was not the only one. A few years later, another figure, Albert Bender, also publicly shared his encounter with the mysterious men in black. Bender was a UFO researcher deeply passionate about the supernatural ever since his teenage years. He was the founder of a nationwide UFO research organization and was well known for both his vivid imagination and sharp analytical mind. Yet after a series of groundbreaking discoveries, Bender too was visited and threatened by 3 men in black. Following the encounter, he withdrew entirely from the field, shut down his organization, and lived the rest of his life in isolation. The men in black, they're not just rumors. They are the embodiment of a hidden force ready to intervene and erase any effort to uncover the truth. After World War II, Albert Bender stepped away from the busyness of life to seek peace and quiet. He moved to Bridgeport, Connecticut, and gradually devoted himself entirely to his greatest passion, the study of extraterrestrial life. In 1952, he founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau, IFSB, a pioneering organization created for the global UFO research community. The group quickly grew in influence, attracting hundreds of members from around the world, including notable scientists and true believers in alien civilizations. Alongside its publication, Space Review, Bender and the IFSB built a platform where bold theories could be shared and questions like, What is the government hiding, or are we being watched by an intelligence beyond Earth were openly explored? The 1950s were a politically and militarily sensitive era, especially with Cold War tensions rising. Interest in UFOs and the paranormal skyrocketed. Many in the public began to suspect that flying saucers were not weather balloons or military experiments, but possibly machines from elsewhere in the cosmos. Space Review stood out in that climate, a flicker of light in the information darkness, a rare outlet where seekers of truth could gather and question the unknown. Then one day, Albert Bender made a bold declaration. He announced a special upcoming series of publications that would reveal his latest findings, that UFOs were neither natural phenomena nor man-made crafts, but extraterrestrial spacecraft, originating from a specific location in the universe, one he claimed to have identified. The announcement sent shockwaves through the UFO research community. Bender's name was suddenly everywhere, but it would also mark the last time he would publicly speak about the subject. Just as he prepared to present his findings at an international conference, Bender began receiving strange phone calls. The voices were untraceable, but always carried the same message: stop. One night after returning from the cinema, Bender froze at the sight of three unfamiliar men standing outside his home. They had dark complexions, expressionless faces, broad shoulders, and lean, wiry builds. Each one wore a perfectly tailored black suit, white shirt, and black tie. Too flawless, almost unnatural. They didn't introduce themselves. Bender instantly knew who they were. One of them stepped forward. His voice was metallic, cold, and commanding, leaving no room for argument. They warned Bender if he did not cease his research and abandon any intent to reveal what he knew, the consequences would be severe, not only for him, but for the people he loved. As they walked away, Bender noticed something strange in their gait, stiff, unnatural, like they were mimicking human movement without fully understanding it. Their car, too, was unlike any he had seen, sleek and advanced, but without a single logo or identifiable mark. It felt as if it had come from another world. From that night forward, Albert Bender's life became a living nightmare. He was constantly watched, harassed day and night. His health began to deteriorate, mysteriously severe headaches, dizziness, persistent nausea, and even episodes of temporary memory loss, as if someone had erased parts of his mind. His house began to emit a foul sulfur-like odor, the kind often reported in paranormal cases. Feeling unsafe everywhere, overwhelmed both mentally and physically, Albert Bender was eventually forced to surrender. He disbanded the IFSB, announced his complete withdrawal from UFO research, and released one final issue of Space Review. In it, he left behind a cryptic message. The story of the flying saucers, it is no longer a mystery. Their origin is known. But that truth is being kept hidden by a power far greater than any of us. He ended with a chilling warning. If you are pursuing the extraterrestrial truth, be careful. From that moment on, Albert Bender vanished from public forums. He never published another study, choosing instead a quiet, secluded life. Yet what he experienced would become one of the most important turning points in the history of the Men in Black, not merely because of fear, but because it hinted at the real existence of a force manipulating truths the world may not be ready to face. It wasn't until 1962, nearly a decade after his mysterious encounter, that Albert Bender spoke out again. He published a book titled Flying Saucers and the Three Men, a rare document in which he detailed the appearance, behavior, and chilling conversation he had with the beings now famously known as the Men in Black. But Bender didn't simply describe them as men. He posed a radical question: were they truly human, or were they extraterrestrial entities themselves sent to Earth to monitor, intimidate, and suppress any effort to reveal the truth about UFOs? According to Bender, the Men in Black not only had an uncanny presence, but wielded advanced technology capable of manipulating the mind and instilling paralyzing fear. Worse yet, he believed they weren't operating alone. These mysterious figures might be part of a global network, possibly connected to secret societies and invisible powers working quietly behind political and scientific institutions. Bender emphasized that there were things he could not share for the sake of his own safety. He hinted at the existence of a boundary, a limit no truth seeker should dare cross. The book caused an immediate stir. It captured widespread attention, from both the public and the research community, though it also ignited a storm of criticism. Many dismissed Bender's story as a fabrication, a byproduct of stress, or an overactive imagination shaped by years of pressure managing the IFSB. Yet regardless of the skepticism, Albert Bender had opened a new chapter in modern folklore. His story became one of the first to introduce the image of the Men in Black into popular culture, dark-suited strangers from nowhere arriving with one mission to keep the truth hidden. What's most bizarre is that he wasn't the only one. Researcher Harold Dahl, who came forward years earlier, and Bender himself, living in different times and places, described the same thing: men with emotionless faces, rigid posture, and an ability to leave people shaken to the core. But it didn't stop at personal accounts. Harder evidence began to surface. One of the most disturbing came in the form of a photograph. In the image stood a man in a crisp black suit and fedora. His face was pale, his expression frozen, and he stood motionless on a sidewalk, not doing anything, just staring up at the apartment of Jack Robinson, a well-respected UFO researcher. Jack and his wife, Mary Robinson, had spent years collecting reports, analyzing data, and publishing findings related to UFO phenomena. But as their work deepened, strange disruptions began to plague their lives. Their apartment was routinely ransacked. They felt constantly watched. And then the man appeared every day in the exact same spot, never moving, never speaking, just silently staring at their window. Mary Robinson managed to take a picture. That photo became one of the few physical pieces of evidence believed to capture a real man in black. The man in the image didn't blink. He didn't turn his head. He made no attempt to engage with anyone. His face was ghostly white, his eyes empty, his expression robotic. His stance, if it could be called that, was unnaturally stiff, as if his body barely knew how to imitate a human form. 3 stories, 3 different time periods, 3 separate witnesses, yet all share one chilling commonality: the appearance of men in black suits as if they came from another reality. So, who are they? Why do they always show up at just the right moment to threaten or stop UFO researchers? Who do they serve and where do they come from? After years of speculation, 3 dominant theories have emerged regarding the true identity of the Men in Black. The first theory: they are government agents, individuals assigned to top-secret missions to monitor, investigate, and control information related to UFOs. Their descriptions, cold demeanor, emotionless expressions, formal dress, and rigid behavior mirror those of a highly trained force. They don't ask, they command. They don't persuade, they intimidate. And most disturbingly, they make people doubt their own memories. Accounts of encounters with the Men in Black MIB often reveal close links to government or military organizations. In the tense atmosphere of the Cold War era, when protecting sensitive information was a top priority, this theory gained even more traction. And if MIBs are truly government agents, the question becomes, what exactly is their mission? According to numerous witness testimonies and documents, the Men in Black operate like an information suppression force, silencing anything related to UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Many eyewitnesses have reported receiving stern warnings not to speak publicly about what they saw. The reason they give: to prevent mass panic and to keep critical information from being leaked or manipulated by hostile powers. But the MIB don't stop at intimidation. They're believed to collect physical evidence as well: pieces of unknown craft, advanced technology, photos, videos, and classified documents. Any attempt at independent research or public disclosure is often aggressively shut down. More disturbingly, they appear to serve as invisible gatekeepers standing between humanity and the vast cosmic secrets still buried in the universe. Though their actions, surveillance, pressure, threats may seem sinister viewed through another lens, it could simply be part of their national security protocol. If the Men in Black are indeed covert agents, then we may be dealing with a highly organized, well-funded operation backed by tremendous authority. Many witnesses have stated every time a major UFO event occurs, these Men in Black arrive shortly after, and then somehow all related information disappears from public media. Countless reports claim that MIBs have seized entire archives from researchers, forced them into silence, and erased all findings. Their tactics are eerily similar to those of a government crisis team. However, despite its apparent logic, this theory remains highly controversial, mainly because there's no physical proof or official documentation confirming that the MIB are agents of any government. At one point, the CIA became a prime target of conspiracy theories. Some researchers believe the agency didn't deny the existence of UFOs, but deliberately blocked further investigations into extraterrestrial life, citing national security. Even the U.S. Air Force USAF has been suspected. One anonymous witness claimed the USAF coordinated with other agencies to secretly investigate the Bermuda Triangle and related UFO phenomena. Yet when confronted, both the CIA and USAF have firmly denied any connection. They insist they've never sent agents in black suits to threaten or intimidate witnesses. To this day, no investigation has successfully verified that the men in black are part of any official agency. What we do know is this: a mysterious group of men in black suits appears without warning, then vanishes without a trace, targeting UFO witnesses and urging them to remain silent. And still, their true identity remains an enigma. So who or what are the men in black? Humans, machines, extraterrestrials, or tools of a hidden power operating silently within the modern world? Before exploring the next theory, let's imagine this scenario. You're given a top-secret mission, one so sensitive that a single slip could change the world. Then someone, an outsider, accidentally discovers your operation. They want to go public to expose everything. Given the stakes, you have only one option: silence them. But instead of removing them, a dangerous and obvious act, you choose a subtler tactic: psychological pressure. You make them fearful. You disorient them. You push them to abandon their quest. And that is the very tactic the men in black appear to use. From this perspective, a chilling theory arises. The men in black are not human. They are extraterrestrials disguised as humans, manipulating our world from the shadows and erasing every trace of their existence. It's not just their behavior, but also their appearance. Witnesses from Harold Dahl to Albert Bender have described them as too perfect, eerily flawless, and possessing knowledge no ordinary human should have. This theory gained serious momentum after Albert Bender's revelations in 1962. And then in 1976, a highly respected figure, Dr. Herbert Hopkins, shocked the world. That September, Hopkins was conducting a hypnosis session with two witnesses who had seen a UFO in Norway. Under trance, both recounted being overwhelmed by a blinding white light, then blacking out and losing all memory. Hopkins believed he was on the verge of a major breakthrough, one that could unlock the secrets of memory and alien intervention. However, just when expectations were at their peak, something strange happened. Hopkins received a phone call from someone claiming to be the vice president of a UFO research organization. Without suspicion, he agreed to meet. Just a few minutes later, when he turned on the porch light, he saw a man in a black suit and matching Homburg hat walking toward his house. There was no way this man could have arrived so quickly since the call ended. But as he got closer, what stunned Hopkins wasn't the speed, it was the man's bizarre appearance. The man had ghostly white skin, like wax, no eyebrows, not a single hair on his body, and a disturbingly expressionless face. When he removed his hat, the artificial strangeness of his features became evident, like a flawed replica of a human being. He spoke in a voice so flawless it was soulless, devoid of emotion, without pause, and completely unnatural. Their conversation centered around the UFO incident in Norway and the data Hopkins had gathered. At the end, the man suddenly changed his tone. It became threatening and icy. He demanded that Hopkins immediately cease all research and destroy every document. The horror didn't end there. After issuing the threat, his voice began to slow down like a tape playing at decreasing speed. He staggered out of the house, losing coordination like a puppet with dead batteries, and vanished into the night. Hopkins was terrified. When his wife and children returned, they found him frozen in a chair holding a gun. He couldn't explain what had happened. He only knew one thing for certain: he had just encountered a man in black. After the incident, Dr. Hopkins' story quickly spread, becoming one of the most compelling pieces of evidence supporting the theory that the men in black are not human at all, but alien entities in disguise attempting to hide their true existence from the human world. Dr. Hopkins wasn't the only one to have a terrifying encounter with the men in black. John Keel, one of the most famous UFO researchers, also fully agreed with the theory that these beings are not ordinary humans. In his famous work, The Mothman Prophecies, Keel didn't view the men in black as government agents as many mistakenly believed. According to him, these men in black always appeared with such strange appearances that it was difficult to consider them human. They had waxy grayish-blue skin, walked unnaturally, and behaved as though they were pretending to be human. Keel noted that they often drove black Cadillacs, but curiously the license plates were never registered and the cars never appeared at the same location twice. That's when Keel began to think beyond conventional ideas. He proposed a bold theory: UFOs, the men in black, and paranormal phenomena all are manifestations of a force that exists beyond the three-dimensional world. Not extraterrestrials from distant planets, but entities living alongside us in another dimension, constantly observing and intervening in the human world. According to Keel, these beings could create illusions, manipulate perception and memory, and sometimes leave behind traces in the form of the men in black. These strange men were merely masks concealing the true nature of that supernatural force. This theory opened a new doorway to understanding the men in black not as intelligence agents, not exactly as interstellar visitors, but as part of a hidden reality coexisting with humanity since ancient times. Most recorded encounters with the men in black describe strange-looking men in black suits, hats, and sunglasses, resembling funeral directors. They looked foreign, but no one could tell where they came from. Some had dark-skinned, almond-shaped eyes like Southeast Asians, and spoke with a voice so unrecognizable it seemed like they had learned English from a cold, emotionless dictionary. Could they be spies from some unknown force sent to control the flow of information regarding classified projects, especially those involving UFOs? It appears their capabilities go far beyond those of any human organization. However, as the theory of men in black as alien beings gained popularity, a strong wave of skepticism also emerged. Many analysts pointed out that most men in black stories relied on eyewitness accounts and lacked physical evidence. And it was no coincidence that these stories surged during the media and pop culture explosion around UFOs in the 1960s and 70s. Some experts suggested that the men in black are not supernatural entities, but products of human psychology, specifically the effects of mass hysteria and collective memory. According to psychological theories, mysterious fear-inducing elements tend to spread rapidly within communities, especially in times of social anxiety, like fear of war, loss of control, or invasion from the outside. Details such as black clothing, cold voices, and unnatural behavior are repeated across many stories and retellings. This could be an example of the Mandela effect, where collective memory reconstructs identical details from a familiar mental pattern. In the end, perhaps the men in black are simply the symbolic embodiment of collective fear. The black suit, expressionless face, and sudden midnight appearance all represent invisible control, nameless power, and the incomprehensible. But it is precisely this that makes the men in black an enduring urban legend, a symbol of the thin line between science and the supernatural, between memory and delusion, between truth and nameless fear. The unusual characteristics of the man in black do more than simply frighten, they stir a deep subconscious unease, especially in moments when humans feel powerless, threatened by forces beyond their understanding. The unconscious, the birthplace of metaphysical and mystical symbols in the human mind, is precisely where the image of the man in the black suit is formed. According to psychologists, the man in black appears as a spiritual symbol representing invisible threats, a reflection of the deeply rooted anxieties that arise when people confront the uncontrollable. In analytical psychology, the concept of the shadow refers to the dark unconscious aspect of the self parts of the ego that are hidden and rejected by the conscious mind. And the man in black, with his surreal appearance, unnatural behavior, and voice that seems to echo from another realm, is a perfect fit for the role of the shadow in the collective unconscious of humanity. They are the embodiment of primal fear, of nameless, faceless things that lurk behind the doors of memory and awareness. They don't have to do much, just existing is enough to force humans to question the nature of their reality. Another important psychological aspect of the man in black is their connection to hallucinations and false memories, especially during moments of extreme stress or emotional disturbance. Many eyewitnesses of UFO events have admitted to experiencing overwhelming obsession, sometimes even falling into dissociative states, which leads to memory reconstruction based on pre-existing subconscious templates. This is especially likely when the image of the man in black has already been deeply ingrained in popular culture through books, movies, and chilling stories passed from person to person. For example, if someone had previously heard of the Man in Black and later experienced an unexplainable phenomenon, it's entirely possible that they would unconsciously reshape their memory to fit the known image of the Man in Black, even if reality was entirely different. The explosion of media and the internet has amplified this effect like a chain reaction. Each new story not only reinforces the fear, but also adds new layers of mystery to the Man in Black as a symbol. Today, these Men in Black suits have moved beyond being just a phenomenon. They've become a cultural icon, forever linked to any event involving UFOs, aliens, or conspiracy theories. Because humans have an innate need to control their fear by retelling it, by giving it a name and a shape. And the Man in Black is the perfect form to satisfy that need. From a psychological perspective, the Man in Black doesn't necessarily have to be a supernatural being or a secret agent. They could simply be the symbolic embodiment of anxiety, expectation, and unresolved inner conflict. Their presence in popular culture reflects how collective imagination functions, creating and sustaining myths. Myths that in turn shape human perception. From films to literature, from UFO reports to whispered conversations among believers of the otherworldly, the Man in Black has become a cross-generational symbol, straddling the boundary between the real and the unreal, between man and shadow. Even though Hollywood has turned them into comic figures in sci-fi films, the frightening and mysterious essence of the Man in Black continues to baffle researchers. Who are they, humans, aliens, or collective phantoms conjured by the human mind itself? No one truly knows the answer. But one thing is certain, the Man in Black has become an inseparable part of the world of conspiracy theories, always appearing in the most mysterious UFO encounters. And if one day you happen to see a strange light streak across the night sky, don't be too surprised if a few nights later there's a sudden knock at your door in the dead of night. Maybe they've arrived.